Which one of these 5 mistakes are you making? If you're feeling brave, drop in a comment with the number. Through my work with founders and entrepreneurs in travel and hotel tech, I see the same patterns and mistakes being made by different people. And you know what? I don't think any of them will really surprise you. The surprising thing is that people keep making them. Nowadays, there's wisdom aplenty freely available on the internet. I mean, I do these videos every single week. There are incredible books you can read to learn from, free webinars, just a wealth of knowledge and information that we never used to have. So often we know what we should be doing, but for some reason we can't bring ourselves to actually do it. And that's the work I do, reducing the gap between what you want to make happen and what you're actually doing about it. So, time to get honest. Listen up and see which one of these you might be making and then what you can do about it. If you're feeling brave, drop in a comment with the number. So, number 1, I see founders working in a bubble and building in a bubble. They are heads down, tweaking their product, tweaking the website, writing emails, tweaking the website copy that Claude wrote for them. They end up being in an echo chamber with only Claude to speak to. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem is that your product isn't going to live in a bubble. Your product needs to be sold out in the real world with real human beings. So the further down the road you get in tweaking without interacting with other humans and getting feedback from potential clients, the further off piste you could be going with your idea or your product. Also, there are a lot of people out there who would love to give you some advice and help you and potentially give you helpful feedback. And you're missing out on that if you're keeping in your bubble. More on that in my last point in point 5. So why does this happen? It probably means that your perfectionism is taking over. You don't dare to show the world something that isn't completely 100% ready. You see other people out there on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok, that look like they've, got everything sorted. You feel like you need to get everything sorted for yourself before you go public. The problem is we're always comparing our own messy inner world with other people's highlights reel. So it feels much less scary just to stay in our little bubble than to take your product or idea out into the real world. Number 2. The second mistake I see founders making is having an end goal or a really big dream, but not actually breaking it down. So for example, you want to get your first 10 customers, or you want to make 100 grand this year, or you want to speak on stage at World Travel Market. These are great goals to have. And it's important to have dreams that somewhat scare you, especially as a founder or entrepreneur. You need to have some wild ideas. You need to have some big dreams. The problem is when that big dream stays big and far away and you don't break it down into teeny tiny steps that you can start to take. Firstly, it means that the dream is harder to achieve if you don't have the small steps to get there. And by consistently having a dream that you're not achieving, you're actually reinforcing your brain's belief that you can't do it and that dream is not meant for you. So the longer you spend having the dream without the steps, the more you think maybe that dream's not for me. Well, I'm here to tell you that dream is meant for you, and that's just what I do. I turn dreams into plans. Just trying harder to get to that dream is a recipe for disaster because you think you've tried your best, but you haven't actually implemented the mechanics that you need to use in order to be successful in achieving that big dream. It also outsources your ownership over that dream. So just wishing and hoping and trying for something big to happen, you try harder and harder and harder, but you're not serious about the mechanics that go into it. That means you can't celebrate the small steps along the way that will eventually add up and compound into making that dream a reality. So what does that look like in practice? It means you need to know your numbers, what the average client will pay you, what commission you pay people, how many clients paying you X amount is going to get you the revenue you need, what your profit margin looks like. And it also means you need to know what inputs are going to have what outcome. You put yourself to work on the inputs and then you can celebrate yourself for doing those inputs and the outcome will eventually come. For example, you don't actually have control over how many clients will sign with you. That's in their control. But you do have control over how many clients you contact, how many messages you send, how many people you connect with, how many networking events you go to, how much research you do on your pricing, and how you construct your offer. I'll be sharing a little post about this later on LinkedIn this week about how that might look practically, breaking things down into steps, and what happened with one of my clients when they came to me with a revenue goal in mind, but no plan around it. Okay, problem number 3 that I often see founders making is leading with the product and the features and not the client's need. I see this especially with people from a tech background or builders that know the product inside out, and they know that product is a good product that's going to solve a problem, and they're so in love with the product. It's their baby, it's what they want to talk about. This is, leading with the benefits rather than the features is a well-known sales tool. We know what we should be doing, but we're not always doing it, right? Like I said. So how can you get around this? Firstly, ask more questions. More questions is always good, as long as they're useful questions. You should be asking questions probably for about 50% of the sentences you're saying in a demo or a sales call or even a networking event. And those questions should be valuable to the person that you're talking to, not just to you. Of course, we're asking questions to find out information. That's inevitable. That's going to help us. But we're also asking questions to help the other person in the conversation see their situation differently and to position you as a trusted advisor who understands their situation maybe even better than they understand it themselves. Then, get really specific when you're explaining the impact of your product. I know that you already think you're doing this, but do it more. You're not just saying you're going to save them time. You're not just saying you're going to make them money. You're not just saying that operations are going to be smoother. You're saying, I'm going to help you sleep easier at night. You're saying, I'm going to get the hotel owners off your back in the next quarterly meeting. You're saying, my product is going to be the thing that makes your team want to stay with you rather than leaving. Do you see how different that is and how that gets into the real emotion that the person might be feeling? Try that next time. Go further. Be more personal. The fourth mistake that I see founders often making is context switching without any intentionality and any guardrails behind it. Now, as a founder, entrepreneur, you have to wear many hats. That's just the name of the game. You have to be the CEO, CFO, CPO, CTO, 3CPO, and also make your own coffee, what the heck. But all of that is exhausting for your brain because switching from one context to another or from one task to another slows you down. In fact, just knowing you have an unread email, not even knowing who the email's from, reduces your IQ by 10 points. Ouch. Now, you can't not context switch during the day. Obviously, you can't be like, it's Monday, I'm only dealing with finance today. It's Tuesday, today I'll think about my hiring problems. Because it's startup life, it moves very fast. Every day is a plane crash. And there's a lot of things going on. But there are ways to help your brain understand when you're context switching and which hat you're wearing. What I like to do every Monday morning is have about half an hour of CEO time, where I take a deep breath to start off with and get out of the fight or flight mode. I consult my tarot cards. Oh, I've just packed them for my holiday. I consult my tarot cards with a question for the week, and then I check in with the team that lives on my knuckles. Let me tell you a bit more about all of this. So first, the tarot cards. You don't have to use tarot cards. What I'm doing there is I have to ask the tarot cards a very specific question to get an answer. It's not like, how's business this week, or when am I going to, run off with a tall, dark, handsome stranger. This asking a really specific question forces me to work out what is the biggest question on my mind this week. And that's important because when we pose a question to our brain will try and find a way to answer it, whether that's with the help of a tarot card or not. The answer might come to you in the shower or walking your dog. So getting really specific about what is the question that's on my mind this week is a great way to help get your answer. And what is it with this team of people on my knuckles? This is a technique I learned during my neurolinguistic programming training, where you assign a different role to each of your knuckles. I learned this from NLP master practitioner Robbie Steinhaus, and he has a matrix of 10 characters that you actually have to inhabit to run a business successfully, but you don't have to start with 10. You can start with 3 or 4 roles that you play in your business. Now, every time you get into that role, you activate a different knuckle, and it should feel different to you once you've had some practice. If you're not sure how to do that, you can Google Anchors NLP or drop me a note, and I'll give you a bit more information. The more fun way of doing this, you could literally have different hats. Like you can have your CEO hat, your CFO hat, your people's hat. That's very NLP. It's also very me because I love fancy dress. So if you have 3 or 4 hats on your desk and you wear a different hat when you have to make a different kind of decision or play that role, your brain will be able to context switch much more quickly. Another thing I try and do is group tasks together. So anything that's not completely urgent, I try and plan them in the diary and do the same kind of task at the same time. Creating invoices, chasing invoices, doing your expenses, similar kind of task, do them at the same time. If you have to update your website because you're updating your offer, then use the time to also update your website and add your testimonials. Even though it's on a different page of your to-do list, it's still fixing your website. And the last one, number 5. The final mistake that I see a lot of founders making is trying to do it all themselves. So you may be a solo founder, but that doesn't mean you have to be the expert on everything. It doesn't mean you have to struggle and push through and always do everything alone. In fact, all the best business leaders and founders and entrepreneurs of big businesses, successful businesses, have coaches and mentors for a reason. When you're inside the jar, you can't read the label on the outside. You're so deep in the weeds of things, of your product, of the build, of client issues, you can't always see what's actually happening. Sometimes it takes someone external to you and your situation to help you see what's really happening. It's really like a cheat code on foundership to get external support. Now, I know you probably know that you should be doing this, but you haven't been doing it. And maybe you feel like you don't want to annoy someone by asking them for a favor or for some advice. Well, let me tell you, people are normally much more willing to help you than you realize. People are actually flattered when you ask for help or advice. You don't have to pay everyone that's going to give you advice, although if you're not paying them, even if you are paying them, worth taking all their advice with a pinch of salt and run it through your own brain as well. Put your CEO hat on. If you'd like to hear how other founders and entrepreneurs in travel and hotel tech are getting more support for their business, then you could join me at the Founders Lounge on the 9th of September, 12:30 UK time, for 55 minutes, or I'm bringing together a group of 15 founders to discuss exactly that question, how to get more support in and for your business. It's a great informal conversation. You'll get a chance to be in a small group with founders to really get to know them, and there'll be a big open forum discussion. Last time I got really good feedback and everyone really loved it. I've already got 2 people signed up as of the day of recording this, so I would love to see you there.